everyone, David Aragona here, taking a look at race 4 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. It is the cash run stakes for 3-year-old fillies, newly turned 3-year-old fillies, as this race is taking place on New Year's Day. So they'll be one day 3 years old, going the one-turn mile on the dirt course. Let's throw up the field for this race. Just 7 runners signed on. Have not yet seen the morning line for this race. I would imagine, though, that the horses that will vie for favoritism are 3 horses that are all coming off maiden victories, with the number 3 Surreal Fantasy likely to be the shortest price of those. She is coming off a blowout victory last time out of Tampa Bay Downs. The number 2 Kathleen O also likely to attract some support off a visually impressive last to first victory in her debut at Aqueduct. And also the number 6 Fast and Flirty, one that might fly a bit under the radar, could be the 3rd or 4th choice in this race, but another one that's coming off a maiden victory at Churchill Downs and deserves a look in this race. And those are the 3 runners that I want to focus on as I talk about the contenders in this race. Not the highest quality stakes that you'll see run for the 3-year-old fillies, but all 3 of those that I mentioned coming off those maiden victories do have upside and are lightly raced runners that could take a big step forward in their stakes debuts. Before we get into those contenders, though, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this race. And that horse that I do imagine will be the favorite, the number 3 Surreal Fantasy, does have plenty of early speed, and she's likely to get the front end here if she breaks cleanly. This is turning back to the one-turn mile for her, where she went 2 turns at Tampa Bay Downs last time, but she has shown early speed in a sprint race in her debut as well, even though she didn't run well that day. So I imagine she's going to be quick enough to get to the front here. You do see that red flag indicating that the Timeform US pace projector is predicting a fast pace in this race. We'll see how much pressure Surreal Fantasy gets from other Florida-based runners like the number 7 Mina Grita and the number 5 Jumeirah. No surprise, though, that one of the horses that's all the way out the back is the number 2 Kathleen O. She showed no early speed in her debut. She's going to be very dependent on the early pace of this race if she uses the same running style that we saw from her first time out at Aqueduct. Let's get into those contenders, though, beginning with Surreal Fantasy, who is coming off a very impressive victory when she won by 13 lengths last time at Tampa Bay Downs. Let's take a look at the replay of the stretch run of that race. And she already comes into the stretch passing the quarter bowl with a big advantage on this field, did this very easily. She was not a heavy favorite in this race, going off at 2-1. She was one of 3 horses that took money in this race, but she was far superior to her rivals here. They just did not have the speed to go with her early as she opened up an advantage on the backstretch and just continued to widen through the lane. You can see she's still a little bit green. She's kind of flicking her ears back and forth through the stretch, flagged her tail once when she briefly got hit with the whip in mid-stretch. So still a horse that's kind of figuring everything out, but if she repeats that 100 Timeform US speed figure that she got for that race last time, she's going to be pretty tough for this field to handle. You could see in the Timeform US PPs all the way on the left side of your screen next to the race rating, that 83 race rating, there's that tiny O. That indicates that it was the only dirt route on the card. So maybe a speed figure that you don't have total confidence in, because I know when you only have that one dirt route, sometimes there's nothing to compare it to. But sprint races, and you don't have all of the utmost confidence that it's reliable and comparable to the other races. But Surreal Fantasy, when you win by 13 lengths, you're typically running pretty well. So if she runs back to that kind of effort, I do think she's going to be tough in this race. And also giving a bit more confidence in Surreal Fantasy is this formulator stat that I found for Safi Joseph. Once again, she's likely to be a short price in this race, but many horses in this formulator factor were short prices, and they just win at a very high rate. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, last out maiden winners in Gulfstream dirt routes over the past 5 years. Safi Joseph is 7 for 18, almost a 40% win rate with a $2.53 ROI. So Surreal Fantasy, if history has any bearing on this race, likely to repeat her maiden victory. That might be good enough to win this cash run. Another horse that I think is going to take money in here is the number 2 Kathleen O. And let's take a look at her maiden victory when she won her debut race, going the 7 furlongs at Aqueduct. And that's her all the way on the left of your screen highlighted there. Pretty far back in the pack, but she is going to win this race, believe it or not, even though she has quite a bit of ground to make up in the final furlong. Those 2 that are battling it out on the front end, they were slugging it out for basically the entire race, and they get pretty tired at the end of this race. So Kathleen O, even though she's just making her debut and weaving through traffic, she is going to find an extra gear in the final 16th and run past those 2 leaders to just get up as they get to the wire, winning by a head. Only got an 86 Timeform US speed figure for that race, and the early pace was on the quick side. You see that one red color coded Timeform US pace figure, so she did get some pace to close into, but it is a good sign when a first-time starter can eel that kickback, especially over a muddy track, and still close resolutely to get up to win. So you do like to see that. It's encouraging that Kathleen was able to win her debut in such a fashion for a trainer like Shug McGahee, who often doesn't have his runners cranked up to win their first starts. However, Kathleen, she is going to have to move forward if she's going to beat a horse like Surreal Fantasy. She's bred to handle extra ground, but the fact that she was so badly outrun in the early stages of her debut does make you wonder a little bit moving to Gulfstream if she'll be able to use that same running style here, especially with a race that I'm not sure how fast they're going to go on the front end, despite that fast pace flag on the Timeform USPPs. We'll see if Surreal Fantasy controls this or if she gets pressure, but I think there are some reasons to be a little bit skeptical of Kathleen if she is among the shorter prices in this race, though she definitely is one with upside. The maiden winner that interests me most, actually, is the number 6, Fast and Flirty. Let's take a look at her Timeform USPPs. Both of her starts have come in Kentucky. She made her debut going the 7 furlongs at Keeneland, and that was over a sloppy track. I thought she ran pretty well that day, kind of ran in spots, looked a little bit green, was urged intermittently by Martin Garcia, but closed decently to get up for second, beaten over 5 lengths. I thought, though, she took a nice step forward in her second start. She was much more engaged early, going the 1 turn mile at Churchill Downs. While the pace figures for that race are not color-coded red, a horse kind of ran off on the front end and set what was an honest pace for that distance. And Fast and Flirty had to make the first move after that runoff leader, was actually kind of pressured to move maybe earlier than she wanted to by a horse that made a premature move to her outside, coming around the 3/8 pole. She got to the front end and I thought held sway pretty gamely in the final quarter mile as the race kind of fell apart behind her. Only got an 89 Timeform US speed figure for that performance, but as we take a look at the chart for that race in the Timeform USPPs, do note that there have been multiple runbacks out of that race at Churchill Downs. You could see I highlighted them with some arrows there. On the right side is the numbers that they ran behind Fast and Flirty, and just to the left of that are the numbers they ran in their subsequent starts. And you could see the 3rd through 7th place finishers, they all came back and improved their Timeform US speed figures in their next starts and did so significantly. And there are multiple winners coming out of that race. The 3rd place finisher, Valentina Day, came back to win, running 15 points faster. The 5th place finisher came back to win, running 18 Timeform US speed figure points faster. And that horse that was setting that fast pace, the 7th place finisher, Delight of the Nile, she came back and was a very good second in her next start, running 22 Timeform US speed figure points faster. So that race that Fast and Flirty won might be better than the speed figure indicates. And for that reason, as we throw out my picks for this race, I made Fast and Flirty my top pick. Like I said, haven't seen the morning line yet, but I imagine that she will be the 3rd choice in this race. So I put her on top, just thinking she'll offer slightly better value than the 2 other recent maiden breakers. I've got Surreal Fantasy second. I respect her last out victory and her early speed. I think she's dangerous in this race, but at a short price, I'm more interested in Fast and Flirty going off at bigger odds. And then I've got Kathleen in 3rd. We'll see if she gets the pace situation that she needs to close from the back of the pack. But that's a look at the cash run stakes at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing this weekend.